the pleasure to bring us home before we have some questions in the panel. For those who don't know me, I'm Jeff Kent. I've been with Procter & Gamble 25 years. I was with the U.S. Air Force before that, so familiar with Lockheed. I worked on the F-117 and F-15E, and I worked on smart weapons and weapons displays and a number of things where our operators and our maintenance folks were everything. So as I tell the story that I'm going to tell, we've had a couple different presentations from an enterprise level, from a data analytics level. I happen to represent controls, right? I grew up as a controls engineer at Procter & Gamble, so we get different perspectives. So what I brought to talk about is certainly part of our overall digital transformation, but a very focused view from how the control system needs to be unleashed and not really just be brought to bear just because of IT or OT convergence, but the control system is a very powerful asset in how we can do a much better job. So I can't tell you a bunch of numbers, but we've got a very important operational intelligence program with the very overarching goal to introduce thousands of machine learning algorithms at the equipment level all around our over 120 sites or 40 different countries that we operate in support of over 100,000 people in product supply. So I've been on this journey for about 5 years. I'm going to tell a story of where we're at and how the control edge should not be forgotten as we talk about edge, as we talk about bringing intelligence, as we talk about IT-OT convergence. Happen to bring some of the branding that we're using internally. Before I even get into it, the Smart Box is the control edge device, product technology that we're partnering with industry leaders to bring to bear at a very affordable, practical way. Wise is the overall service that supports the DevOps of that box, as well as the overarching MLOps lifecycle, which is actually the bigger issue here, right? And we'll get into it. I happen to sit in our engineering organization, something that we have a corporate function for, as well as engineering deployed all over our different business units and sites. And I'm in a group that was started with 7 people, a whole new idea 5 years ago because Industry 4.0 was here and we needed to figure out what to do. So I was given this great opportunity. We're at 25 people. We have 2 engineering innovation centers in Cincinnati and in Kronberg or Frankfurt, Germany. And things couldn't be any more exciting. Get this to advance. So as I get into it, I want to talk about why we need to do it before I get into the technology. So P&G is very proud of our world-class quality for irresistible products, but we certainly, like all of the businesses, need to be what we call doing constructive disruption to do what we're doing in quality assurance in a much more affordable way. So my view of it is we have a very manual quality assurance program that needs to be converted to a dynamic and digital quality assurance. So just to keep it simple, I think most of us that are in manufacturing or making products know that we have statistically significant quality assurance processes where we, at a time basis, take some of our products, we take them to laboratories, we do the laboratory tests, very, very, very significant tests. However, the technology has changed for much of us. At P&G, I've been making products at 20, 30, 40 milliseconds a product, and it was improbable at times to check all of the key parameters or key variables. Well, that's no longer true. Similar to fighter aircraft and others, we do have the data, and we should be building the machine learning algorithms to be able to do dynamic digital quality assurance on every single product, record it, and keep the genealogy as if it was a Tesla vehicle. A diaper and a Tesla should have the same quality confidence on every single one. Then on process and machine control, I mean, we have very, very sound systems, and we've been all in this room working on this for a number of years. But these need to move to more dynamic, intelligent, and adaptable. We've heard this multiple times today, that our production processes need to be adaptable. So for Procter & Gamble, we're very, very dependent on the quality of our incoming raw materials. And we want to be just dependent. We want to be able to adjust those processes very dynamically within a range to create the highest quality product at the highest OEE. So these processes are no longer run-to-target processes. We use the term run-to-target in our integrated work system. No, we should be able to run to the exact thing we need to be at because we have more dynamic, intelligent process, because we can take the characterization of material at any moment of the supply chain and feed that forward into the production systems. And this just moving from the siloed traditional process and machine control world to a network of information that can really be optimized across the whole operation. And then maintenance, we've talked about this before multiple times. We just talked about it on the Lockheed example, but going from time-based maintenance, using our information and structured data from the PLMs, moving it into a more predictive and prognostic maintenance. Something must be in my pocket to stop. So anyways, I'll keep going into where do we see the money. So let's get into the value, right? So anyone who works in similar industries sees these similar value propositions. So, manufacturing operating expense, we can see us cutting that by 10% or more. We get 5 to 10% staffing efficiencies. We can cut our maintenance and repair costs by 50%. Our quality assurance, although world-class, is extremely expensive to do the way we're doing it. And we certainly won't be able to support the speed of initiatives as Mike talked about earlier. If our quality assurance lags behind the initiatives, we can't release the initiatives. Then we come to this total delivered cost. The cost of raw materials, if anyone's read our earning reports, those are our headwinds, right? All of our stuff is expensive, and we got to find a way to be much better at material utilization. Then we were scrapping things, right? Things we don't understand in the quality process, things that we haven't figured out what to do during initiative qualifications. And then finally, we have this general manufacturing cost or pre-production cost. This is the no man's land of when you bring in innovation or initiatives. All of these things are things that we have a huge opportunity to deliver to what P&G calls net structural savings across the way we operate. So as I get into, well, how do you unlock? So what do you got to do, right? What's the challenge, right? I'm not going to talk about a bunch of architectures right now. I'm going to talk about the fundamental thing that our customers tell us. In the upper left corner is, because we have brownfield equipment, we have a whole range of maturity on our OEM equipment, we can't get the right data out. We can't contextualize. It's not the right resolution. Okay, so once you have the data on any one of these, even on the C-130, we talked about this. I need more data. I need it in the right time series. I need it contextualized. I don't know how to use the data. I'm not a data scientist. How do I turn my subject matter expertise into an AI or machine learning model that I can trust in my operation? Okay, now I have a model because I had a data scientist or I had SAS or somebody to help me build that model. How do I actually operationalize it and run it 24/7 with confidence, with drift, all the things that your plant managers want to know? Okay, this is new. Am I going to commit my quality process release to something that I'm not sure about? And then finally, how can we do this at scale? How do we roll it out and do the whole MLOps thing that's really kind of an easier said word than understood by all of us in the industry, including the people who are going to sell us the services? Okay, so we got to solve this whole thing, right? If we're going to deliver thousands of machine learning models and have our plant managers and operations commit. So my team, about 2.5 years ago, at the behest of my boss, said, I'm tired of hearing it's complicated. I'm tired of hearing that it's going to take time. He said, you had to come up with a product and a service that I can sell to any plant in an affordable way. So we decided we'd have a technology stack called the Smart Box, and we would have a service that not only supported that box, but supported the machine learning lifecycle. We went out to the industry and challenged the industry leaders to do this with us. We've made some choices. There's some things out on the internet. I'm not going to get into that today. Who's partnering with us, at least on the Smart Box. And then we continue to go out to our customers in the plants. What we were selling them is, if you really want to do machine learning, we have something that we can get you in and get your data in 1/10 the time. We can get you a machine learning model in 1/10 the cost, and we can do it with confidence in an area that you have no confidence. So these are things that we've been working on. So I'll bring my IT friends back into the equation, right? Okay, it isn't just about the control systems folks running the world, although I view we're kind of the Army and IT's the Air Force, and I was an Air Force guy, so I respect this. We're all needed here. So we created a view of this that we can share, at least with our executives, that we have the Smart Box or a control edge device that can look at any variety of OEM or equipment areas that we have anywhere in the company and harvest that data, whether it's Mitsubishi, Rockwell, Siemens. We're using OPC UA and other things in this space as well. That is complemented by an on-premise OT stack above and below the firewall, and then it's supported by our cloud endeavors that we're doing with Microsoft. So And then we map the whole data cycle from getting the data to contextualizing the data to working it through your model development, through your model deployment ops, and then all the way to delivering to our operators as pilots these machine learning models. So we're in the process of living this out with our IT friends, and we've never been closer. I'm not telling you how close we were before, but we've never been closer on this, and we're very proud of the progress we're making. We also are building to train P&G as a whole, particularly in manufacturing, and what it will mean to do machine learning over its full life cycle, to earn the right to run on a control system, run on a production system, which is vastly different than someone who's running machine learning model in a planning system or other supply systems. Those are important too, and we're doing that at P&G. But my job, coming from engineering, is to make sure our equipment can put thousands of models out there and do it repeatedly, as ubiquitously as a PLC or a DCS has done in the past, okay? So as I close, I always like to bring this slide up because this is where I get passionate, right? I said when I was here last year with OPC, us folks that came from controls and automation weren't so happy to be given a label OT as if it was all the same, okay? What I think we need to respect is the control system. Its importance in this architecture is important. We should understand how it contributes. We also should not make it 100% dependent on these very complex architectures, because many of our plants around the world need some independence as well as being part of the intelligence movement. I think that's what I had, and I did want to give one plug. John's with us in the panel. There's a really important Smart Manufacturing Executive Council where many of us, maybe some of us in the room, are contributing to make this practical, make this affordable, make this important, and make this something that all of our companies, not just the people on this, can buy into and support the mission, particularly for the United States to be competitive in the way that smart manufacturing and these ideas are brought to life. Appreciate the opportunity to be on the council, John, and maybe there'll be some questions for you in the panel, okay? There's also a charter here that explains that, you know, the U.S. manufacturing ecosystem is vital, and we need to continue to work to bring smart manufacturing to life for not just big companies like P&G in the top 25 of ARC, but everybody else, right? Selfishly, even P&G would like to see all of our small to mid-size suppliers doing as well as Pfizer and others, so that we all can benefit from what is not the opportunity for smart manufacturing, okay? So I think we'll go to the panel, okay?